Dear participants, we are going to deliver a particular session on modern management theory and managerial quality as well as leadership in context of library and information science. All of you are aware that the modern librarianship requires several management skills which are essential for their day-to-day activities for the accomplished library services towards the community. In this respect, we would like to discuss regarding modern management theory and different management quality as well as leadership qualities required for the budding library professionals of the day. All of we are aware that management is the art of getting things done by others. Here in this context, you must remember that others also include the manager himself or herself. So, management in today's parlance have undergone several changes throughout the decades, and in our library and information science profession, we consider management as a science, and it is developed with the method of distillation. Different organizations like hospitals, industry, and other manufacturing sectors, they have in their regular activities learn and then they decipher these practices towards the management science, and thus management science is a distilled subject in our library science parlance. Now, from the beginning of management, we understand that almost 2900 BC, when pyramid was developed, it was definitely required a huge number of personnel for their day-to-day activities. That's why there must have been the management skills on the part of the government as well as the monarchy of that period, and that management skills required also for the Great Wall of China as well as other places in different ancient activities. At the same time, our librarianship has also undergone the same sort of managerial practices starting from the library of Mesopotamia, when King Ashurbanipal has built the library along with their skills from the clay tablets to our present day. We have also learned several techniques in this respect, and that's why unless we introduce those managerial qualities and the leadership qualities in librarianship, probably it would be difficult in future to excel in our activities and to implement different projects as well as library purpose of our country as well as the society. Now, in psychology as well as in social theories, knowledge of the basic principles and theories of management helps in practicing management by way of increasing efficiency and effectiveness. Both the things are required. It should be efficient as well as effective. That's why modern management thought has evolved over the years from contribution of various disciplines, and that has been deciphered in our interpersonal and group behavior, which is essential for library activities also. In this respect, we must remember there are different socio-technical systems approach, even open system approach, decision theory, operational research approach, contingency or situational approach, managerial roles, and all these things we are going to discuss in a nutshell in the present discussion. So, from the broad or the narrower sense, in whatever we say, some quite specialized area, the management itself, and from our own point of view, we could comprehend that the present day librarian must learn the theory of different management for effectively and efficiently perform in the present day activity. So, if we just elaborate the concept of management, we can consider that it's an occupational group, that is a group of people performing some managerial tasks and functions. It is used collectively to refer to all the individuals in the group. On the other hand, it's also indicated to an individual who performs the managerial functions or is a part of a group evolved in the management functions. We can consider it as a academic discipline also. It's an area of specialization that imparts knowledge and skills in management. It's a process also that involves performing a series of specific types of activities or functions. And management is as old as humanity itself. It's needed wherever they are organized in the human society. It's a clear and distinction over the others need to be very specific, that there must be a clear distinction between management and administration, where management involves planning, designing, initiating actions, monitoring activities. Say for example, in library, if we are planning for a new section, we are planning for implementing computer in our library or automation of cataloging activities, then that is the plan, the design of it, and the actions required for this purpose. Monitoring of all these activities involves management. Whereas if we look into the administration, where it involves implementation of this activity, how it can be implemented, how it can be made effective in exact the automation activities of the library as well as different functions of the library. Now, from the chronology of managerial accomplishments, which from the earliest civilization, as I mentioned, from Egypt, where the pyramids were built in 2900 BC, and the Great Wall of China, as well as some other places. Even we find the mention of management in Bible itself, where Moses hired his father-in-law as the first management consultant to help design and organization, through which Moses led the Hebrews out of Egypt and governed the Hebrews. So, as a specific person, his father-in-law, he has assigned the responsibility, so we could easily can understand that the concept of management was there at that timing when they had prepared for Bible. If we classify different management theory, then we could understand that apart from the autocratic or authoritarian or what we call pre-scientific era, that is earlier to 1880, that is the earliest period of management, several schools of management are identified and classified in several ways by experts. It's interesting to note that while early writings on management principles came from experienced practitioners, the more recent writings tend to come from academic theorists, which are not basically practitioners. So that is another aspect of management, that earlier management theories were basically developed in industry and different factories where managers have learned from the personnel as well as different activities in the organization. But in present day, most of the cases academicians take the responsibility of developing different management theories. The management schools may be classified in several categories. One may be considered the management process school, another is the empirical school, third is the human behavioral school, fourth one the social systems school, fifth one the decision theory schools, and the sixth one is the mathematical school. Now, in the management of organization, Herbert Hicks has noted down that different management school, again leaving the earliest perspectives, and he has classified the management theories in three all encompassing schools, where different categories can be considered as classical management theory, neoclassical management theory, and modern management theory. In a few words, let's discuss about classical management theory. It's a group of similar ideas of management, when the classical school is sometimes called the traditional schools of management among the practitioners, and that school basically contributes to the management, includes application of science to the practice of management, development of the basic management functions, and articulation and application of specific principles of management. Now, what is scientific management? This is basically, the contributor is Frederick Winslow Taylor, F.W. Taylor, who is popularly known as, is considered as the father of scientific management, and Taylor was supported in his efforts by Henry Gant, Frank and Lillian, Gilbert and Harrington, and other scientists, management scientists rather. All these disciples of Taylor became famous in their own right. Now, what exactly is the basic component of the scientific theory developed by Taylor? Let's have a look that each person's job should be broken into elements, and a scientific way to perform each element should be determined. Next part is, workers should be scientifically selected and trained to do the work in the designed and trained manner. Now, let's consider our library, where we have a specific job for everyone. We have cataloger, we have classifier, we have sorter, janitor, even we have IT professionals who would take part in different aspects of library activity. So, a scientific management is a classic example for library also, and scientifically selected because we know that in libraries, unless we have a specific knowledge of, say, digitization activities, digital repository building, website management, or providing access to the online public access catalog, nobody would be selected. That's why the selection and training of the workers in library are basically the component of scientific management. There should be good cooperation between management and workers so that tasks are performed in a designed manner. So, cooperation among the workers. Here in our library activities, we have this cooperation in such a way that we call it an integrated library management system. Integrated from acquisition section to the cataloging section to the circulation section and so on. Ultimately, the report generation and future planning of the library, which is the part of the management, everything are integrated. So cooperation is inbuilt in our library activity. There should be a division of labor between managers and workers in the scientific management theory. Here also we have, say for example, we are working under the librarian, some deputy librarians are there, and each deputy librarian again are assigned with the responsibility. Say for example, one is for periodical section, another is for operational sections like cataloging, classifications, another one is for advertisement and public relations. Now under each deputy librarian again we have assistant librarians, and under each assistant librarians again technical staffs like classifiers, catalogers and so on. So all these things, as Taylor believed that the scientific method would provide a way to determine the most efficient way to perform work, that is really embedded in our library system, and that's why it's a classical scientific management process which are really active in every library profession. Now our next aspect is importance of leadership in management. Management at any time definitely would start from someone who will strive willingly and enthusiastically towards the accomplishment of the group goals, that is the activities of the library. So who would initiate the idea, generates it, and strive their professionals, whoever working under that particular project or particular wing or section, they will come forward willingly and they will accomplish the work wholeheartedly. So librarianship, and to become an effective librarian, we must look different activities are required for that purpose, and first of all leadership activity is very much essential to become an effective librarian. Scheduling different production operation and applying scientific techniques, scheduling techniques rather, like critical path method, what is popularly known as CPM, and program evaluation and reporting techniques, or popularly known as PERT. Frank and Lillian Gilbert, they have concentrated on time and motion study. I'll describe a very classical case of library motion study activity. Say for example, users have come to the library to continue and to study a particular periodical journal or a particular article of a journal. Then how long it takes to find that particular article, whether it is in printed environment or in digital environment. Nowadays the modern libraries definitely have the charging and discharging, everything is accomplished by the user himself or herself. So it may not take much time, it depends on the user himself or herself that how long he will take. But when our library professionals at the circulation desk, they will provide this activity, then a classical motion study can be conducted, that how long it takes to charge a document from the point of searching the catalog to the getting it issued to the user. There are 12 principles of efficiency by Harrington Emerson. These principles which state the manager should carefully define objectives, use the scientific method, and then go on to do these things. There are of course some deficiency in the scientific management theory. The reason being, we cannot consider a particular employee entirely as an economic man. Man's behavior is dictated not only by financial needs but by other needs. There lies the significance of behavioral theories, social theories, security needs theories, and esteem needs of the users. That's why whenever we would assign the responsibility to a library professionals, at the same time we must keep in mind that not only his or her salary matters, but also whether he or she is satisfied with the social need, with the security needs, or with the esteem need, psychological need of the professional. Now, two different persons may at the same time perform the job entirely in a different way. That's why the scientific theory cannot be applied to these two employees in a same way, and that's why we must keep in mind that each one has their own way of performing. And the third aspect is separation of planning and doing a job, and the greater specialization inherent in the system. It depends on the person's outlook, his attitude, his perception about the particular function, and once this particular aspect is grasped properly, assimilated in its mind properly, then probably they would be in a better position to perform these things in a clear and efficient manner. Another administrative management, which are different pioneers are there in this particular aspect, which emphasizes the administrative and general management theory, the finding of the best way to run an organization. Here, the theory is developed by Henri Fayol, who was a person of the period of 1841 to 1925. He was basically a French industrialist, and he was the chief architect and the father of administrative management theory. And Fayol's unified concept basically built the foundation of the modern management. And it was in his French book, where if we translate it in English, it will come as Industrial and General Management. Henri Fayol's book title, Industrial and General Management. He emphasized that the process of management is the same at any level of any organization and is common to all types of organizations, whether it is library, whether it is hospital, whether it is other industrial areas. And he developed 14 principles, and all these principles are very popular to all of you. As you are aware, first principle is division of labor. You see, it has some relation with scientific management of F.W. Taylor also, where he also has mentioned that someone should specialize in each area of activity, and selection must be done based on that specialization. Here also we find division of labor, authority and responsibility. Authority and responsibility should go hand in hand. Someone is entrusted with the responsibility must think that unless authority is given, probably someone is not in a position to really perform that task properly. So, intelligence, work attitude, personal traits, experience, and the moral worth of the person that holds the position, that to what extent authority and responsibility would be entrusted to him. Then comes discipline. Any nation, any organization and library, all the processes, all the activities must find some discipline. Unless in our personal life as well as in our organizational activities, if we forget about the obedience, application, involvement and following a particular unit, their practices properly, then there would be definitely a colossal of failure, and that's why authority, discipline, and personality, they are all very closely related. Next comes the unity of command. That means the employees should receive orders from one superior authority only. At the same time, if simultaneous 2 or 3 people order them, probably it would be a monstrous task for the personnel to abide by all the orders at the same time. So the authority is distributed among various levels in the hierarchy of positions in the organization. Exactly in this particular aspect, the scientific management has their different motions, in the sense they have a specific sections and nobody hinder in their activity. Then comes unity of direction. Activities in an enterprise must be organized to achieve set the goals, and each group of activities with the same objective must have one authority and one plan. That's basically the idea of unity of direction. Then comes the subordination of individual interest to the organizational. Our own personal achievement, our personal goal definitely would be there, but always that should be submissive to the group goal. Like in a sports, in a team game, as we find that if a single player, if he tries to move forward and make a goal, probably the defenders would always defend him, and that's why making a goal would be very much difficult. Whereas if he passes the ball to the person who is really in a position to score a goal, that would be easier. Then comes different system approach and interdependence and adaptability. What are the basic aspects of a system? A system is basically a set of interrelated components where each component related directly or indirectly to serve some purpose. A system may be an open system where the person who is performing in a library is basically open to the environment itself, where users will be served in different aspects, whether it is current awareness service, selective dissemination of information, or even the simple borrowing of books. But how they are getting benefited, that feedback would come to the system, and that finally matters for the total library activities as well as the activities of the organization. We must keep in mind that library is also a part of an academic institute, a research institute, an industry, or of a society, where each library has its specific role under the premise of that particular organization. Whether it is school, college, university, research institute, or in a social body like the village panchayat or a town, etc. Recognition of complex human motives and variability is the very important feature of the modern management theory. And complex human motives must be studied in a crucial way, so that each person's interest must be compromised with the interest of the organization itself. Use of disciplinary approaches and tools, emphasis on situational and adaptable strategies. Situational means, say for example, at a particular point of time, library has decided to go for automation of a particular section, and they have removed the catalog card. Maybe the old people of that particular organization may raise questions that we are accustomed with the old catalog cards. So, are we in a position to get back those cards again? Considering the importance of those elderly population as well as some of the renowned persons who are maybe also elderly person of that particular library, we must keep the situation in mind, and a section of card also should be maintained simultaneously, and we have to adapt to that. Sometimes due to different regions, say for example last few years we have undergone a set of changes due to corona, and we have adopted different strategies to combat that corona period. Say for example, students had to undergo the Google Classroom and so many online classrooms we were maintaining, and libraries are providing resources so that online resources can be downloaded by our students, and that is basically adaptability to the situation. Depending on the requirement, we have to integrate our system, behavioral and different quantitative theories as well as systems theories, contingency theories, organizational humanism and management science. Productivity is the ultimate object of it. Unless earlier production and the present production matches, at least increased to some extent, we cannot consider that the system is running properly. So a system when works, definitely we must get some output from it, and that output depends on the different feedback and input to the system. Then comes the adaptability to dynamic changes in the environment. Dynamic change, it's regularly we have to face different changes due to technological development, due to demand of the users, due to different resources which become scarce suddenly, and that's why we have to adapt our library system accordingly. One good example is at present Indian nation has been deciding to go for one nation, one subscription for all the periodicals, whether it is online as well as printed journal. So library has to adapt to the particular environment, whether government has decided we may not have our earlier budget. That's why we have to adapt our situation to the central decision which have been implemented for all the institutes for country, whether it is research institute or academic institute. That's a holistic approach integrating all organizational subsystems. In contingency theory again, management strategies depend on situational factors. As situation arises, we have to go in that direction. So it's a project kind of activities. When situation demands, we have to be flexible for our decision making, and the leadership style also has to be changed. Sometimes we may have to go a bit offensive. Sometimes we have to build our mechanism in such a way that we have to go slowly so that people first embrace our decision and they can implement in their day-to-day life. Integration of various management theories for applicability, focus on adapting to environmental and organizational dynamics, and finally another organizational humanism is essential for this purpose. Focus on self-actualization and employee potential. Every human being, whenever he becomes an organizational person, must we keep in mind self-actualization, his or her recognition in the total system. Unless someone feels that his presence or her presence is a very significant for the organization, that enhances his role or her role in that particular. Because one, he understands that the requirement of the organization, how to implement his work, he or she knows it better. Then in management science, all the earlier techniques as we have mentioned, whether it is LPP, linear programming techniques, PART, that is performance evaluation and review technique, and CPM, that is critical path method to evaluate it again. Another style of leadership is transformational leadership, that is inspiring the change and innovation. And finally, the transactional leadership is focused on structured tasks and then reward, that at the end of this much performance, you will be awarded with these things. So reward as well as punishment, both should be there. Attributes of effective leaders are visionary thinking and strategic foresight is essential. In library also, they must decide looking into the requirement of the user. They have to perceive the user's demand and accordingly they have to behave. Emotional intelligence and empathy is essential. Empathy to know what others feel, in what way others basically perceive about the organization, their motives and their participation with wholehearted endeavor. Adaptability and flexibility, communication and interpersonal skills, ability to inspire, trust and motivate the team. Finally, we will come to the some criticism part of our modern management theory, which basically the over-reliance on quantitative and data-driven tools. In library also we perform that, say for example, you have to prepare 20 catalog cards per day, but you see there must be some error when we really assign the overload on our user, I mean our personnel, and limited focus on human-centric processes in decision making and challenges in universal application. And the future trends of management is emphasis on sustainability. Artificial intelligence and machine learning is coming into the picture, where some tasks of human being where intellects were playing a fundamental role, machine probably is coming to play those repetitive tasks. The focus on employee well-being, diversity and inclusion is essential. In conclusion, we must say that the modern management theory, which addresses the organizational complexities and the quality of leadership, has been decided with the help of that. The theoretical insights and the practical applications together would make an effective management, and thus in future we can find a better organization and a better library. Here are some questions for you. You can go through that. Here are some multiple questions for you. Thank you.